Have you ever wondered how the Vice President of the United States is chosen? The Vice President is the second highest elected official in the country, and they are just one heartbeat away from becoming the most powerful person in the world. When you cast your vote in a presidential election, you're not just choosing a president, you're also choosing their second-in-command, the person who could one day lead the free world. The process of selecting a vice presidential candidate is a crucial part of any presidential election. The choice of a running mate can have a big impact on the outcome of the election, influencing everything from voter enthusiasm to a candidate's chances of winning key swing states. So how exactly does this process work? Let's take a closer look. The role of the Vice President. The Vice President has several important duties and responsibilities. First and foremost, they serve as the President's understudy, ready to step in and assume the presidency if the unthinkable were to happen. This has happened several times in U.S. history, most famously when Lyndon B. Johnson took over after the assassination of John F. Kennedy in 1963. But the Vice President's role goes beyond just being a backup. They also serve as the President's top advisor, attending high-level meetings and offering their counsel on major decisions. The Vice President also presides over the Senate, casting tie-breaking votes when necessary, and they often take on special projects or policy initiatives on behalf of the administration. So the choice of running mate is a critical one for any presidential candidate. They need to select someone who can not only step into the presidency if needed, but also be an effective partner in governing. The nomination process. The process of selecting a vice presidential candidate typically begins during the primaries, when the eventual nominee starts vetting potential running mates. This involves an extensive review of the candidate's background, qualifications, and political ideology to ensure they will be a good fit. The nominee will often conduct a series of interviews and chemistry tests to gauge how well the potential running mate will work with them. This is an important factor, as the president and vice president need to have a strong working relationship and be able to see eye to eye on major issues. The vetting process is highly confidential, with the campaign closely guarding information about who is being considered. Potential running mates are typically required to hand over years of personal and financial records, undergo extensive background checks, and sit for lengthy interviews. One of the key factors the nominee will consider is how the running mate will complement their own strengths and weaknesses. For example, a presidential candidate who is perceived as inexperienced or lacking foreign policy credentials may choose a running mate with a strong national security background. Or a nominee from the coasts may select a running mate from the Midwest or South to help appeal to a broader geographic base. The nominee will also look at factors like the running mate's fundraising ability, their popularity with key voting blocs, and their potential to help the ticket win pivotal swing states. These strategic considerations can be just as important as the running mate's qualifications and personal chemistry with the nominee. Once the nominee has made their selection, it is formally announced at the party's nominating convention. This is a big moment, as the running mates are introduced to the nation and the delegates get a chance to formally nominate them. The convention speech is a key opportunity for the VP nominee to introduce themselves to the country and make their case for why they should be elected. After the convention, the campaign team will work on introducing the running mate to the public and highlighting their strengths. This often involves a bus tour or other events in key swing states, giving voters a chance to see the pair on the campaign trail together. The general election. During the general election campaign, the vice presidential candidate will take on several important roles. Perhaps most notably, they will participate in a televised debate with the opposing party's VP nominee. This gives voters a chance to see the running mates in action and compare their qualifications and policy positions. The VP debate is always a highly anticipated event, and it can have a significant impact on the overall campaign. Strong performances can give a ticket a boost, while poor showings can hurt their chances. Just ask Dan Quayle, whose disastrous 1988 debate against Lloyd Bentsen is still infamous today. In addition to the debate, the vice presidential nominee will hit the campaign trail, delivering speeches, attending rallies, and meeting with voters. They can be a valuable asset in helping the top of the ticket appeal to key demographics or win important swing states. For example, the selection of Sarah Palin as John McCain's running mate in 2008 was aimed at energizing the Republican base and appealing to women voters. Palin's folksy charm and perceived connection with real Americans was seen as a way to counterbalance McCain's more staid and experienced persona. Of course, the VP nominee's performance can also backfire. Palin's frequent gaps and lack of foreign policy knowledge ultimately hurt the McCain-Palin ticket. And Dan Quayle's stumbles were a major liability for the first Bush administration. Ultimately, the vice president is elected on the same ticket as the president. Voters cast their ballots for the presidential candidate, and the running mate comes along for the ride. However, the VP nominee's performance can still have a significant impact on the outcome, the inauguration, and beyond. If the ticket is successful, the vice president-elect will be sworn in on Inauguration Day, taking the oath of office alongside the new president. From that point on, they will serve as a key member of the administration, participating in high-level meetings, advising the president, and potentially taking on special projects or initiatives. The vice president's role can vary greatly depending on the relationship with the president and the administration's priorities. Some vice presidents, like Dick Cheney under George W. Bush, have wielded significant power and influence. Cheney was seen as a de facto co-president, shaping policy on everything from the Iraq War to domestic surveillance. Others, like Al Gore under Bill Clinton, have taken a lower profile, focusing more on specific policy initiatives rather than broad decision-making. Gore was tasked with reinventing government and promoting the nascent internet, but was not as deeply involved in the administration's day-to-day operations. Regardless of their specific role, the vice president is always just one heartbeat away from the presidency. This means they need to be ready to step in at a moment's notice and lead the country. It's a responsibility that demands experience, judgment, and the ability to handle immense pressure. There have been several instances in U.S. history where the vice president has had to unexpectedly assume the presidency. When John F. Kennedy was assassinated in 1963, Lyndon B. Johnson took over and continued to push forward Kennedy's ambitious legislative agenda. When Richard Nixon resigned in 1974, Gerald Ford was sworn in and had to guide the nation through the Watergate scandal. More recently, when Donald Trump was hospitalized with COVID-19 in 2020, there were concerns about the potential transfer of power to Mike Pence. Fortunately, Trump recovered, but the incident highlighted the ongoing importance of the vice president's role. The impact of the vice president. The choice of a running mate can have a significant impact on the outcome of a presidential election. A strong VP nominee can help shore up support among key constituencies, deliver critical swing states, and provide a valuable partner in governing. Conversely, a weak or controversial VP pick can weigh down the ticket and hurt the presidential candidate's chances. Dan Quayle's missteps as George H. Bush's running mate in 1988 were widely seen as a liability, and some argue they contributed to the ticket's narrow loss. The VP nominee's performance during the campaign can also affect public perceptions of the ticket. A strong debate performance or effective campaign appearances can boost enthusiasm and turnout among the base, but a stumbling VP candidate can distract from the presidential nominee's message and raise doubts about the ticket's readiness to govern. Moreover, the vice president's actions and influence once in office can have a lasting impact. Dick Cheney's hawkish foreign policy views and penchant for expanding executive power were a major factor in the Bush administration's approach to issues like the Iraq War and domestic surveillance. Al Gore's environmental advocacy and internet promotion helped shape the Clinton-Gore legacy. So while the vice president may not be the one at the top of the ticket, their role is crucial. The choice of running mate and the VP's performance can make or break a presidential campaign, and their work in office can shape the direction of the country for years to come. So there you have it, a behind-the-scenes look at how the Vice President of the United States is selected and the crucial role they play in our democracy. It's a process that may seem complicated, but it has a huge impact on the future of our country. Next time you head to the polls, remember that you're not just voting for a president. You're also voting for their running mate, the person who could one day become the most powerful leader in the world. The choice of vice president is a decision that deserves careful consideration. What qualities do you think are most important in a vice president? Do you believe the VP nominee can sway the outcome of a presidential election? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful, Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more great content. The 2024 presidential election is just around the corner, and there's sure to be a lot more fascinating VP drama to come. Thanks for watching, and don't forget, every vote counts.